Poor mechanic fixed a bedroom light at 2 a.m. Then the lonely millionaire whispered, "Stay with me tonight." The rain hammered down on the glass roof like 1,000 desperate fists, relentless and wild. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the vast, high-ceilinged living room of the mansion for a split second before darkness swallowed it whole. "I said send someone! I don't care what time it is!" Monica's voice cracked through the phone, her tone sharp, teetering between command and panic. "This isn't just about a broken light. I can't be in the dark, not again." The line crackled in her ear, the dispatcher stammering something about limited emergency coverage during the storm, but Monica had already stopped listening. She hung up, the screen of her phone dimming just as the last overhead light flickered twice, then went dead. Total silence. Then, thunder roared, shaking the windows. A sudden vacuum of light turned her entire home into a shadowy abyss. Monica stood frozen in the center of her marble-floored hallway, her breath catching in her throat. Her tall, slender frame trembled, her blonde hair clinging to the sides of her face, damp with sweat, not rain. Her fingers fumbled in the dark as she turned toward the hallway, nearly tripping over a decorative stool in her panic. She bolted upstairs, nearly slipping, until she reached the sanctuary of her bedroom. She yanked open the top drawer of her nightstand. A flashlight, thank God. She clicked the switch. Nothing. She shook it desperately. The dim bulb glowed faintly for a heartbeat, then died. "No, no, no," she gasped, dropping to her knees. Her hands flew across the drawer, scattering pens, receipts, a sleeping pill bottle. Empty. She pressed herself back against the bed, hugging her knees, her breath becoming ragged. Her chest rose and fell, too fast, too sharp. In the pitch black, Monica's eyes widened, searching for light that did not exist. She could hear her heartbeat now, that rhythmic thud echoing in her ears, deafening in the silence. But beneath it, under the thunder, another sound rose in her memory, the faint drip of water in a concrete corner, the creak of old stairs above her, the soft rustle of rats in the dark, that horrible, endless darkness. 14 years old, shoved into a cold, damp basement by a man whose face she never saw. 3 days, no light, no food, no escape. The memory gripped her like icy hands. Her body convulsed in a silent sob as she curled tighter, her nails digging into her arms. The dark had never left her, not truly. She thought she had overcome it. Years of therapy, success, control, money. But none of that mattered now, because the darkness was back, and it knew her name. She managed to crawl back to her phone, hands shaking violently. Her finger trembled as she redialed the emergency line. This time, she didn't yell. Her voice was a whisper, raw and pleading. "Please, just send someone. I'll pay whatever it takes. Just don't leave me here in the dark." She didn't wait for an answer. She ended the call and dropped the phone beside her. Her eyes adjusted slightly, but all she could see were the outlines of the furniture, dark shapes looming like ghosts. She crawled into bed, pulled the covers to her chin like a child hiding from monsters, and stared wide-eyed into the void. In the distance, the storm raged on, but inside the mansion, it was silent, and that was worse, because in silence, the past returned. Every breath was a battle. Every second in the dark was a second too long. The cold wrapped around her like a second skin. She bit down hard on her lip, blood filling her mouth, but at least it grounded her. It reminded her she was here, now, not in that basement. Her mind drifted to the light she always kept on in the corner of her room, the one her therapist told her was okay to rely on. That one comfort, always on, no matter what. But tonight it had failed her. She glanced toward the lamp, but there was only darkness. Monica pulled the covers tighter, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. The shadows danced with each flicker of lightning from outside. Her lips moved silently, reciting fragments of affirmations she barely believed anymore. "I am safe. I am here. This is not then. This is not." The creak of the floorboard outside her room made her jolt. For a moment her breath stopped completely, but there was no one, just the house, settling, breathing, like it always did. She buried her face in the pillow, muffling the next sob. Somewhere deep down, the part of her that had always survived, the part that had clawed her way back from that basement, built an empire and made the world fear her name, screamed at her to hold on. Just a little longer. Someone would come. She had paid enough. She had begged. Someone would come. Please, let someone come. Let there be light. Let there be light. Rick sat at the edge of his narrow bed, the glow of a nightlight illuminating a sleeping child curled up beneath a worn blanket. Lily's breathing was steady but shallow, her little chest rising and falling with the gentle rhythm of sleep. A soft cough escaped her lips, and Rick winced. He glanced at the clock on the wall, 2:07 OM. His phone buzzed, cutting through the silence like a warning bell. He picked it up, his brow furrowing as he read the emergency dispatch notification. Urgent electrical repair, high pay, Beverly Hills zip code. He rubbed his tired eyes. He had already worked a 12-hour shift, done 3 side jobs, and still came home to bills he could not pay and a surgery he could not afford. Lily's heart wasn't going to fix itself. He looked back at his daughter, sleeping peacefully despite the weak heartbeat she carried. Rick stood, grabbed his tool bag, and slid quietly out the door. The rain had not let up all night. As he stepped outside, a wall of water met him. He pulled the hood of his worn-out raincoat over his head and jogged to his truck, wipers already struggling against the torrent. The roads were slick, headlights bouncing off puddles like ghostly flickers. The city never looked lonelier than it did in the middle of a storm. 15 minutes later, he pulled up to the gate of a sprawling mansion, nearly invisible behind a wall of hedges and iron fencing. No one came to greet him. He checked the address again, then drove up the private driveway. At the front door, rainwater already dripping from his sleeves, he reached up to knock, but before he could, the door cracked open. Monica stood behind it, barefoot, her silk robe clinging to her slender frame. Her blonde hair was damp at the ends, her face pale, eyes wide and glassy. Her fingers trembled as they tried to twist the antique doorknob fully. She said nothing. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no sound came. Rick, seeing her struggle, gently reached past her and finished opening the door. She flinched, just slightly, but didn't step back. Their eyes met. Rick had seen cold before. He had seen fear. But this was something else. This was a woman trying not to shatter into pieces. He nodded slightly, just enough to say he understood without asking anything. Then he stepped inside. She didn't lead him. She just turned, and he followed her through the dim corridor of the mansion. No lights, just shadows. Her bare feet made soft contact with the marble floor. Rick removed his shoes at the threshold without being asked. They reached her bedroom, a cavernous space with cathedral ceilings, designer furnishings, and a single broken lamp sitting crooked on the nightstand. He set down his bag and pulled out a small tool kit. Monica stood near the bed, watching him like a ghost watching the living. He reached for the lamp and began unscrewing the cover. Behind him, he felt her presence grow closer. He paused when her hand, small, shaking, slightly touched the fabric of his sleeve. He turned his head slightly, just enough to catch her eyes. I'm sorry, she stammered, barely audible. I can't be alone in the dark. Rick gave her the smallest, warmest smile he could manage. It's okay. I'm right here. You don't have to be afraid. The moment stretched between them. Then he gently placed a reassuring hand over hers and guided her back toward the bed. He helped her sit, careful, slow, never forceful. Never forceful. From his jacket pocket he pulled out a small LED flashlight. He turned it on and set it beside her pillow. Its soft glow lit her face in gold and comfort. Just keep this by your side, he said softly. I'll fix it fast. Monica clutched the flashlight like a lifeline. Her fingers wrapped tightly around it, her knuckles whitening. Her lips quivered, but she nodded. Rick didn't ask her what happened. He didn't ask why a woman with everything money could buy sat trembling in her own room, unable to face the dark. He just went to work. Quiet, efficient, steady. And Monica, for the first time in years, watched someone move inside her house without fear, without judgment. He didn't fill the silence. He didn't intrude. But somehow, with a single gesture and a single light, he made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she was not completely alone. The soft, amber light of the repaired bedside lamp glowed steadily now, casting gentle shadows along the walls of Monica's bedroom. The storm outside had dulled to a rhythmic patter, but inside, the tension still clung to the air like fog. Rick had finished his work 15 minutes ago. The light was fixed, the wires had been replaced, the voltage regulated. He could have packed up and left, but he didn't. He remained seated in the armchair near the bed, his body still, hands resting lightly on his knees, tools already tucked away in his bag. But his eyes weren't on the lamp. They were on her. Monica sat, curled on the edge of the bed, still clutching the small flashlight like it was a lifeline. She hadn't said a word since he fixed the light. Her eyes stared out the window, but not at the rain, at something far beyond it. Rick didn't push. He waited, letting the silence settle. Then he spoke, his voice low, steady. "Sometimes," he said, "the darkest places stay with us longer than they should." The words hung there for a moment. They didn't ask for anything. They offered something. Monica blinked, slowly turning her head toward him, her lips parted, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Her voice, when it came, was brittle. "Have you ever been trapped somewhere?" Rick hesitated, not because he didn't know the answer, but because he did. "Not like you mean," he said honestly. "But yeah, trapped in bills, in broken promises, in a tiny apartment that smells like mold and cheap floor polish. Trapped watching my daughter get sicker every month, knowing I can't afford the cure," he exhaled. "So yeah, I know what it feels like when there's no light at the end." Monica didn't respond right away. Her fingers tightened around the flashlight, her knuckles pale. Then, with a slow inhale, she said something she hadn't said out loud in nearly 2 decades. "I was 14. Rick looked up. Monica's eyes were glassy, fixed somewhere beyond him. "He grabbed me on my way home from school. I never saw his face. He pushed me into the back of a van and drove for hours. No windows, no sound, just my breathing and the engine." Her breath shook. She closed her eyes. "He kept me in a basement, no lights, no clock, just concrete walls and a leaking pipe. I counted 3 days, I think, but it could have been 5 or 1. I lost time. I stopped screaming after the first night." She blinked hard. "When they found me, I hadn't said a word in 20 hours. I stopped speaking, just stopped." Rick didn't move, didn't react with the horror most people did when hearing that kind of story. He didn't gasp or offer platitudes. He just listened. Monica finally looked at him, expecting judgment, pity, discomfort. What she saw was none of those things. Rick's face was calm, steady, present. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say, "That's awful." He didn't say, "You're so strong." He simply leaned forward, gently picked up the untouched cup of tea on her nightstand, now cold, and walked quietly to her kitchenette area in the corner of the suite. He returned a minute later with a fresh cup, steaming, the aroma of chamomile filling the space. He set it down beside her, carefully, and said, "This one's hot." That was all. Monica stared at the cup, then at him, and something inside her cracked. Not in pain, but in quiet recognition. This man, this mechanic who had walked into her darkness at 2 in the morning, hadn't tried to fix her. He had simply sat with her, in the dark. That, she realized, was something no one had ever done. She reached for the tea with both hands, cradling the warmth like a fragile thing. "Thank you," she whispered. Rick gave her a nod, nothing more. But in that nod, Monica felt something shift. Not in the room, in herself. Rick glanced at the now steady lamp one last time. The rain had lightened into a soft drizzle outside. The thunder faded into the distance. The storm had moved on. But inside Monica's room, the air still held its hush. Delicate, uncertain. He stood slowly, gathering his tool bag with quiet precision, careful not to disturb the fragile calm that had settled between them. "I should head out," he said gently, his voice low so it would not feel intrusive. Monica's eyes followed him as he moved toward the door. Then, just as he reached for the handle, she spoke, not loudly, but clearly, each word trembling like a breath. "Can you stay just a little longer?" Rick stopped. He turned slowly, his hand still on the doorframe. Her eyes were wide, not commanding, not guarded, but pleading, honest. It was not about fear of being alone. It was about not wanting to return to that space she had just escaped, the one deep inside her that had been silent for so long. He nodded, once, no hesitation. "Sure." She exhaled a breath she had been holding, without realizing. Monica didn't say anything else. She just turned back to the bed and sat again, her hands wrapped around the warm tea he had brought her. Rick pulled the armchair a little closer and sat across from her. Neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rain sliding down the tall windows, the occasional distant rustle of wind through the trees. The golden glow from the bedside lamp painted their faces in amber. Monica looked smaller under the soft light, the lines around her eyes less sharp, her shoulders less guarded. She was no longer the reclusive millionaire or the woman with the high walls and tight smile. She was just Monica. And Rick? He was not a mechanic in that moment. He was not a man buried under overdue bills or a father desperate to save his child. He was simply someone who stayed when asked. Monica sipped her tea slowly. Her eyes, heavy from days of restlessness, began to drift. Her body, finally warm and safe, surrendered to something she had long forgotten. Peace. Without a word, she lay down, her cheek resting against the pillow. The flashlight he had given her was still in her hand, but her grip had loosened. Within minutes, her breath deepened, steady, rhythmic, sleep. Not medicated, not forced, not stolen by exhaustion, real, restful sleep. Rick sat for a while longer, just to be sure. Then with slow, deliberate movements, he stood. He walked quietly to the edge of the bed and pulled the blanket over her. She didn't stir. He looked at her, this woman who had trusted him with her most broken moment, and felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not pity, not curiosity, something closer to reverence. He reached into his bag, pulled out a small notepad, and tore a page carefully. On it he scribbled a line, then placed it gently on the nightstand beside her. He didn't linger. He stepped out into the night, the rain now nothing more than a whisper against the trees. Inside, Monica stirred slightly in her sleep. Her hand reached out instinctively, brushing against the paper. She blinked slowly awake, just enough to see the words written in neat, straightforward handwriting. "Your light is fixed, but if it ever flickers again, I'll come back." Her fingers curled around the note. She held it close to her chest, eyes closed again, a quiet smile ghosting across her lips. And for the first time in years, she let herself sleep through the night. Not because the light was on, but because someone had promised to return if it ever went out. The rain came again, 3 nights later, not as fierce as the last storm, but steady enough to draw out memories and silence. Rick was cleaning out the gutters behind his rental apartment when his phone rang. The screen lit up with a number he recognized but hadn't expected to see again. "Monica?" he answered, wiping his hands on his jeans. There was a pause on the line, then her voice. Soft, hesitant, but clear. "Hi, sorry to bother you again. I think another light's acting up, the one in the kitchen." Rick hesitated, just for a moment. "I can come by in an hour." When he arrived, the rain had already begun to tap gently on the leaves surrounding the gated property. The house looked the same, but something felt different, warmer. Monica opened the door before he could even knock. She was dressed in jeans and a cream-colored sweater this time, her hair loose, her face calm. "Come in," she said with a small smile. "And you don't have to take your shoes off this time." Rick smiled back, stepping into the foyer. She led him to the kitchen. The light above the island was glowing perfectly. He looked up, then turned back to her. "It's working fine." Monica shifted slightly, then gave a sheepish shrug. "I know, I guess I wanted some company." Rick set his bag down on the counter and leaned back casually. "Well," he said, "this is probably the nicest fake repair call I've ever had." She laughed. Quietly, but it was a laugh. The sound surprised even her. They moved into the living room. Monica brought out 2 cups of tea, and placed them on the low glass table between them. "I tried to cook," she said, nodding toward the dining area. "It's not fancy, just pasta. I followed a YouTube video. It promised to be idiot-proof." "You're already doing better than me," Rick replied. "Last time I tried a recipe from YouTube, the fire alarm went off." They ate together at the long dining table, the room now dimly lit by recessed lights and the soft flicker of rain outside the windows. The pasta was slightly overcooked, but Rick said nothing. Instead, he asked her about her home, her favorite books, whether she'd always lived alone. Monica answered in pieces, fragments of a life built on distance and silence, now slowly rediscovered. She admitted for the first time that she had not slept with the lights off in almost 20 years. Rick told her about Lily. "Some nights," he said, his voice roughening just slightly, "she looks at me and asks, 'Daddy, am I going to die?' And I don't know what to say that's honest, but won't scare her more." Monica set down her fork, her eyes fixed on his. "I'm sorry," she said, but this time it wasn't out of pity, it was understanding. They moved back to the living room after dinner. Monica poured them both a glass of wine. Rick pulled out his phone and scrolled through a playlist. Soft piano notes began to play from the Bluetooth speaker tucked in the corner of the room. Monica tilted her head, eyes drifting shut for a moment. "I used to play this," she murmured, "before everything went dark." Rick looked at her then, not the kind of look that asked for more, but the kind that simply said, "I hear you." She turned to face him fully. "You know," she said, almost to herself, "everyone thinks I'm cold, untouchable, even the people I've let get close, but the truth is, I'm just tired of hurting people or being hurt." Rick's reply was soft. "Sometimes being alone feels safer than hoping someone might stay." She looked down, then smiled. Not a mask this time, but a real one, shy and unguarded. "I don't want to be alone tonight," she said, "but not in the way people usually mean." Rick leaned back, his gaze steady. "I get it," he said. "I'm not here to fix you, Monica." She nodded. "Good, because I'm not broken, just figuring out how to live again." And then, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Monica laughed again, genuinely, freely. It was the kind of laugh that rose from something deep, something finally waking up. Rick didn't need to say anything. He just smiled quietly, watching her, and in that moment he saw the woman she truly was. Not cold, not unreachable, just a soul trying to find her way back to the light. The sky was pale and clear the next afternoon, sunlight slipping through the tall glass windows of Monica's living room. Rick had arrived early to help Monica fix a leaky faucet in her guest bathroom, but their work had turned into another quiet, easy conversation over coffee and laughter. For a moment, the past felt far away. Then, the doorbell rang. Monica opened the front door to find a man in his late 30s leaning casually against the frame, dressed in a sharp blazer and too much cologne. His hair was styled like he still thought he was 25. "Travis?" she said, her smile immediately stiffening. "Cousin Monica?" he said with forced cheer. "You look very insulated in here." She didn't answer. Her body instinctively shifted to block his view of the interior, but it was too late. His eyes flicked past her shoulder and caught sight of Rick walking through the hallway with a wrench in his hand. "Ah," Travis said, nodding slightly. "So this is the handyman I've been hearing about. A little younger than I expected." Monica's jaw tensed. "He's here to help with the faucet." Travis smirked, stepping inside without being invited. He glanced around with mild disdain. "Helping with the plumbing now, huh? Is that what we're calling it?" Monica's spine straightened. "Don't!" Travis chuckled, raising both hands. "Relax, I'm just saying, you always did have a soft spot for broken things. Must be why you let me hang around for so long before kicking me out." The memory slammed into her chest. Years ago, she'd trusted Travis with access to her accounts while she was in recovery from a health scare. He'd drained tens of thousands from her before disappearing, and when she pressed charges, the family turned on her. He looked past her again, calling out louder this time. "So, buddy, how's it feel? Must be nice doing house calls in neighborhoods like this." Rick appeared in the doorway to the kitchen, brows raised slightly. He didn't respond to Travis. He looked at Monica instead, quietly reading the shift in her energy. "I can finish up the sink next time," he said calmly, already placing the wrench back in his bag. "Don't worry about it." Monica didn't stop him. She couldn't speak, couldn't explain the sudden shame curling in her chest. Rick offered a small smile. "It's okay. Maybe next time." Then he was gone. The door closed behind him with a soft click, but it echoed like a slammed door in her chest. Travis shrugged, turning toward the liquor cabinet. "Still drinking the expensive stuff, huh? Good to see you haven't changed." But Monica wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at the closed door, her breath shallow. Her cousin's words hadn't been sharp, but they had been enough. They reminded her that she wasn't someone people defended, that even when someone like Rick came close, one wrong moment, one careless assumption, could unravel everything. Because in her world, people took, lied, hurt, even the ones she once loved. She walked past Travis without a word and climbed the stairs to her bedroom. Inside, the room felt colder without Rick's presence. The little flashlight he had given her still sat on the nightstand. She reached for it and turned it on, letting the soft beam cut through the early evening shadows. It was the first time she had ever wanted someone to stay, and still told them to go. She lay on her side, curled into the blanket, the light still glowing beside her. Monica had always believed she was safer alone. But tonight, for the first time, she wondered if that belief had just cost her something she didn't yet know how to ask for. And somewhere, beneath all the silence and steel she'd wrapped around her heart, a whisper rose. What if I pushed away the only person who ever stayed without asking for anything in return? The envelope sat untouched on Monica's desk for hours. It was from St. Laura's Children's Hospital, addressed to her in clinical sterile font. Inside were medical documents, details she had requested after pulling a few strings, using connections she hadn't called in for years. The name listed was Lily Carson, age 6. Congenital heart defect, high risk, requires surgery within 2 months. The estimated cost was a wall no single father could climb alone. She stared at the photos attached. Lily smiling weakly in a hospital gown, a heart-shaped balloon tied to her eye. Rick hadn't asked, he never would. But she remembered his voice that night, low and cracking. She looks at me and asks, "Daddy, am I going to die?" The next morning, Monica called the hospital administrator and wired the full amount for the surgery, recovery care, and post-op medications. She signed the donation under a pseudonym she created in the moment, Hope Grant. When asked if she wanted her name shared with the family, she replied quietly, "Never." 3 weeks later, the surgery took place. Rick paced the small waiting area in threadbare jeans and an old flannel shirt. His hands trembled with every minute that passed. When the doctor finally emerged and gave a small nod with a tired smile, Rick collapsed into the nearest chair, head in his hands, sobbing. He was still crying when they let him into the room. Lily lay small and pale, but breathing easily. A beeping monitor played the sweetest rhythm he had ever heard. He knelt by her bed, kissed her tiny fingers, and whispered, "You made it, baby. You made it." Then the nurse came in with a folder of post-op details. Inside was a brief note, "All expenses covered by Hope Grant." Rick's eyebrows pulled together. "Who's Hope Grant?" The nurse shrugged. "Just the donor. No contact information. No explanation, just showed up one day and took care of everything." He stared at the name, the quiet mystery of it. Tears rushed back uninvited, and he held his daughter again, tighter than before. Down the hallway, Monica stood behind the large observation window, hidden in the quiet corridor that looked into Lily's room. She had come alone, wearing a simple coat and sunglasses. No security, no assistant, just her and the moment. She didn't need to go inside. She didn't need thanks. She only needed to know that Lily's heart was still beating, and that Rick no longer had to choose between groceries and hope. Her own chest rose and fell with quiet emotion as she watched the man who had once brought her a flashlight, now holding his little girl like the most fragile treasure on earth. Tears slid down Monica's cheek, but she didn't wipe them away. she just smiled. Not the guarded, practiced smile she wore for boardrooms and interviews. This one was small, honest, human. She pressed her hand gently to the glass, as if reaching for something she could not touch. Not yet. It had been years since she had given anything without expecting control in return. Even longer since she'd loved someone without needing to be sure they'd stay. But Rick had already stayed once when she had nothing to give. This was her way of answering that. She stayed at the window until the sun began to rise behind the hills, casting golden light into the room where Lily slept safely. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. The letter came in a plain white envelope, no return address, just her name in simple, clean handwriting. Monica opened it at the kitchen counter, morning light turning everything gold. My daughter's heart beats because someone believed I was worth saving. If you ever need to hear the same, know that you are. She read it again, slower. Her fingers trembled as she held it to her chest. It was his writing, direct, unadorned. But within those lines, he'd given her something she thought she'd never feel again: belief. Tears blurred her vision as she reached for her phone. When Rick arrived an hour later, Monica opened the door herself. Her hand was steady, her voice calm. She smiled. "Hi, hi," he replied softly. She stepped onto the porch, nodded toward the garden. "Come with me." They walked barefoot through dew-soaked grass. The chill clung to them like memory. In the yard, she paused and turned to him. "There's still a lot of darkness in me," she said, "but maybe we can light it together." Rick looked at her, open, steady, then he reached out. Their hands met for the first time. Warm, certain. A soft rain began to fall, cleansing. She didn't flinch. Let it soak her. Let it remind her she was still healing. He squeezed her hand. Neither let go. 1 year later, spring returned. The garden bloomed in soft greens and whites. String lights stretched between the trees like captured stars. Rick stood on a ladder, adjusting a bulb above the patio. Below, Monica sat on a bench, playing a quiet tune on a portable piano. It was the first song she had played since she was a teen. Lily's laughter rang through the air. Stronger now, the little girl danced barefoot in the grass, cheeks rosy, basket in hand. "Mommy Monica," she called. "Look, a heart-shaped leaf." Monica turned, eyes lit with joy. "It's beautiful, just like you." Lily ran to her. Rick joined them, wrapping his arms around Monica from behind. She leaned into him. "You gave my daughter a new heart," he whispered, "and you gave me one too." Monica looked at Lily, still twirling in the grass, then at Rick. "I lost a daughter, and somehow life gave me another chance." She opened her arms. Lily ran into them without hesitation. "I love you, Mommy Monica," the little girl whispered. Monica's breath caught, and for the first time she cried, not from pain, but from joy. She held Lily close. Rick knelt beside them, arms around both. They were together, not broken, not alone, whole in the quietest, most unexpected way. As evening came, the rain returned, gentle and silver. The three sat on a long bench beneath glowing lights. Monica tilted her face to the sky, letting the raindrops touch her skin. No fear, just warmth. Lily rested her head on Monica's shoulder. Rick took Monica's hand, silent and steady. No words were needed. The light around them said everything. And as the camera pulled back, past the garden, the string lights, the soft laughter and the rain, Monica's voice rose softly. "He came to fix a light, but what he lit up was my whole world." Sometimes, the smallest light can pierce through the deepest darkness, and sometimes, a stranger walking into your life at 2 a.m. in the rain is not just a mechanic, but a reminder that love, healing, and second chances are still possible. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories, where every story is crafted to remind you of the power of compassion, resilience, and the beauty of the human spirit. Click subscribe and join us on this journey of stories that heal the soul. Until next time, keep your light on and never stop believing.